Most families do not start thinking seriously about nursing homes until something happens. A fall, a hospital stay, a sudden diagnosis, a parent who forgets to turn off the stove, a spouse who has been quietly carrying more than they can admit. And then, almost overnight, the whole family is forced to make a decision that feels too big for the time they have. That is when the brochures come out, the websites, the tours, the clean hallways, the smiling star photos, the promise that this is the safest option. And sometimes it is the right option. Some people truly need a level of care that families cannot provide at home. That part should never be dismissed. But there is another truth many families do not see early enough. The question is not only which facility should we choose. The deeper question is, what kind of life are we trying to protect? Because safety matters. Medical support matters. Supervision matters. But so do privacy, dignity, routine, friendships, purpose, and the feeling that you still belong somewhere. And when families only talk about care after a crisis, they often end up choosing from the narrowest set of options at the hardest possible moment. That is the part people rarely prepare for. Imagine an older person waking up in their own home, not cut off from others, but not forced into constant group living either. They make breakfast in their own kitchen. They keep their favorite chair, their own front door, their own quiet mornings. But nearby, there are shared spaces where people gather because they choose to, not because a schedule tells them to. Someone might be making coffee in a common room. Someone else might be watering plants. A few neighbors may be planning a shared meal later that week. Not everyone joins everything. That is important. The point is not to erase independence. The point is to make connection easier to reach. This is where many families misunderstand aging in place. They hear stay at home, and they imagine one person alone in a house, trying to manage everything with occasional visits from relatives or paid helpers. That can work for some people, but for many others, private living becomes a quiet trap. The home is familiar, but the days get smaller. The phone rings less. Errands become harder. Friends move away, get sick, or pass on. Family members want to help, but they are busy, far away, or exhausted. So the real challenge is not home versus nursing home. It is isolation versus support. Some communities try to solve this by building shared life into ordinary routines. Residents keep their own homes, apartments, or private rooms, but they also share certain spaces, responsibilities, and decisions. Participation is usually voluntary, because forced community is not real community. People may share meals sometimes. They may help maintain common areas. They may organize rides, check-ins, celebrations, or practical support. At first, this can sound simple, almost too simple, but the design matters. When people live near one another with some shared structure, a small problem can be noticed before it becomes a large emergency. A neighbor can see that someone has not come out all day. A family can get informal support before stress turns into burnout. An older adult can ask for help without feeling like they are becoming a burden, because asking and giving are already part of the culture. That does not mean everyone is watching everyone all the time. It does not mean privacy disappears. The best versions of this model protect both sides. The right to close your door and the comfort of knowing there is life on the other side of it. This balance is what many families are searching for, even if they do not have a name for it. They do not necessarily want an institution. They do not necessarily want total independence either. They want something in between. A place where aging does not mean being removed from everyday life. A place where older adults are not treated only as patients, problems, or future emergencies. The emotional reason behind this is powerful. Many older people are not afraid only of needing help. They are afraid of becoming invisible. They are afraid that once they need more support, the world will start making decisions around them instead of with them. They are afraid of losing the small choices that make a day feel like their own. When someone chooses a more connected living arrangement, they may be saying, "I want help nearby, but I do not want my life reduced to care." That sentence carries a lot of weight. It is not anti-nursing home. It is pro-agency. It is about planning before the crisis, while choices still feel like choices. And in a way, this idea is not new at all. For much of human life, aging did not happen behind one closed door, with one person trying to manage everything alone. People lived near relatives, neighbors, children, shopkeepers, friends, and familiar faces. Support was not always perfect. It could be messy. It could be unequal. It could come with family pressure and conflict. But daily life was often more connected. Modern life changed that. Many families live far apart. Neighborhoods can be less personal. Adult children may move for work. Older adults may live longer, but with smaller daily networks. A person can be surrounded by buildings, services, and technology, and still feel deeply alone. That is why the issue is bigger than housing. It is about relationships. Social isolation is not just an unpleasant feeling. It is a relationship problem that can affect how people function, how they cope, and how safe they feel. When someone has fewer meaningful contacts, fewer regular conversations, and fewer people who notice changes, daily life becomes more fragile. A missed meal, a confusing bill, a low mood, or a small health concern can go unseen for too long. Families often focus on the visible risks: stairs, medications, driving, cooking. These risks matter, but the invisible risk is the shrinking circle around the person. When that circle gets too small, every other problem becomes harder to manage. This is where alternative senior living models can change the conversation. In a more connected community, the value is not only emergency help. It is everyday contact. It is the small hello that confirms someone is present. The shared meal that gives structure to a week. The neighbor who notices a change in energy. The child who waves from across the hallway. The adult who offers a ride without turning it into a formal care arrangement. These moments may look ordinary, but ordinary is the point. A life cannot be made only out of appointments, care plans, and safety checks. People need rhythms. They need roles. They need to feel expected somewhere. For older adults, That can mean being known beyond their needs. For families, it can mean not carrying every responsibility alone. For children, it can mean growing up around older people as part of normal life, not as a separate category hidden away until holidays or emergencies. That intergenerational piece is often underestimated. When children and older adults share regular, respectful contact, both sides receive something different. Children see aging as part of life instead of something distant and frightening. Older adults may feel more connected to the future, not only the past. Parents may find support in a community where someone else can offer wisdom, patience, or simple presence. This does not require a perfect village. It requires repeated contact. That is the key. A single visit can be nice, but repetition builds trust. Familiar faces become part of the environment. Over time, support becomes less like an event and more like a pattern. And that pattern can travel. It does not have to look the same everywhere. In one place, it might be a group of older adults sharing common space while keeping private homes. In another, it might include families, single adults, retirees, and children in the same community. Some models may be more formal. Others may be looser. Some may be designed from the beginning with aging in mind. Others may adapt as residents grow older. The exact structure can vary, but the underlying question stays the same. How do we make daily support easier to give and easier to receive? That question is becoming more urgent. Many people want to age at home or in a familiar community for as long as they reasonably can. At the same time, families are under pressure. Adult children may be working full-time. Spouses may be aging too. Paid care can be difficult to arrange, expensive, limited, or emotionally complicated. And nursing homes, even good ones, may not match what every person wants for their later years. So when families wait too long, the decision often becomes reactive. The conversation turns into, where can we place mom? Or, what facility has an opening? But a better conversation starts earlier. It asks, what kind of support system are we building before the emergency? That shift matters, because once a crisis happens, options can narrow quickly. A family may choose a place based on availability rather than fit. An older person may feel the decision happened to them instead of with them. And even when everyone is acting out of love, the result can still feel rushed, painful, and incomplete. Planning earlier does not remove every hard choice, but it gives families more room to think clearly. It also changes what home can mean. Home is not only a building. It is the place where your routines make sense, where people know when you usually come and go, where your absence is noticed, where your preferences are remembered, where help does not always require a formal appointment, where you can be private without being forgotten. That kind of home can exist in different forms. It can be a private house with strong neighborhood ties. It can be a shared community with separate living spaces. It can be an apartment building where residents intentionally look out for one another. It can be a family arrangement that respects boundaries and plans for support honestly. But the strongest version has one thing in common. Connection is built into the design, not left to chance. Think about family logistics. In a disconnected setup, everything must be scheduled. A visit, a ride, a meal, a check-in, a repair, a conversation. Even love becomes a calendar item. And when life gets busy, the calendar loses. In a connected setup, some support becomes lower friction. Not automatic, not guaranteed, but easier. A neighbor is already nearby. A shared space already exists. A routine already brings people together. The person who might need help is not hidden from the flow of daily life. That does not solve every problem, but it changes the starting point. Instead of asking, how do we bring people back into this person's life? The community asks, how do we keep this person inside the life that is already happening? That is a very different question. Still, it would be dishonest to make this sound easy. Shared living and community-based aging come with real trade-offs. People disagree. Meetings can be tiring. Responsibilities may not always feel evenly divided. Some residents may want more privacy, while others want more participation. New people may arrive with different expectations. Long-time residents may need more care than the community originally imagined. A beautiful idea can become stressful if the practical systems are weak. Who makes decisions? Who handles conflict? What happens when someone's needs grow beyond what neighbors can safely provide? What is voluntary and what is expected? How do people protect privacy while still noticing when someone is in trouble? How does the community avoid turning friendship into unpaid caregiving pressure? These questions matter because good intentions are not a care plan. A connected community can reduce isolation. It can make support more natural. It can give people roles, relationships, and dignity. But it cannot magically replace medical care, professional support, family responsibility, or clear planning. If a person needs skilled care, memory support, or daily hands-on help, the community must be honest about what it can and cannot do. That honesty is what makes the model trustworthy. The goal is not to pretend nursing homes are always bad, or that staying in community is always possible. The goal is to stop acting as if the only choices are total independence or institutional care. There is a wide space in between, and many families never explore it until it is too late. The deeper payoff of intergenerational and community-based living is not just convenience, it is identity. An older person can still be a neighbor, a teacher, a friend, a listener, a storyteller, a gardener, a cook, a mentor, or simply a familiar presence. They are not only someone being managed, they are someone participating. That changes how aging feels. It also changes how younger people understand responsibility. When support is shared across a community, care is not hidden behind one exhausted relative. Children see that people need each other at every stage of life. Adults see that asking for help does not have to mean failure. Older residents see that their presence still has value, even as their needs change. This is one of the quiet truths families should talk about earlier. Aging is not only a medical event, it is a social transition. And if the social side is ignored, the medical side becomes heavier. As residents age, even strong communities have to adapt. The cheerful early years of shared meals and neighborly help may eventually meet harder questions. Someone may stop driving, someone may need mobility support, someone may become confused more often, someone may lose a spouse, Someone may need professional care brought in. Someone may need to move after all. A serious aging in place model does not avoid those realities. It plans for them. That might mean creating clearer check-in systems. It might mean helping residents coordinate services. It might mean redesigning spaces to be easier to navigate. It might mean building relationships with outside care providers. It might mean having painful but respectful conversations about when a person's needs are beyond what the community can safely support. This is where the tension becomes real. A community that welcomes aging must also protect the balance that makes it healthy. If everyone grows old together and no younger people join, the support structure may weaken. If too many people need heavy care at once, neighbors can burn out. If the community pushes people out too early, it may betray the trust that made residents choose it in the first place. So the hardest question is not, can people age in place forever? The harder question is, how do we help people age in place with dignity for as long as it remains safe, honest, and sustainable? That is the truth behind the nursing home conversation. Families are often told to focus on the final placement, but the better focus is the support system before placement becomes urgent. The more connected a person's life is before a crisis, the more choices they may have when things change. The earlier a family talks about privacy, care, money, location, relationships, and daily routines, the less likely they are to make decisions in panic. Nursing homes may be necessary for some people. Assisted living may be right for others. Home care may work for a time. Community-based housing may be a powerful alternative for those who want independence with connection. There is no single answer that fits everyone, but there is one mistake many families make. They wait until the person is already isolated, the caregiver is already overwhelmed, and the options already feel limited. Then they call it a choice, when really it is a reaction. Aging well starts before the emergency. It starts with asking what kind of daily life a person wants, what kind of support they will realistically need, and who will notice when the small things begin to change. Because the real goal is not simply to keep someone alive and safe. It is to help them remain part of a life that still feels like theirs. And for many families, that conversation cannot wait until the hospital discharge papers are already on the tables.